Hello and welcome to the Futro Hidden Movie Gems podcast. I'm your host, Ty Spiker Christensen. You have messed with the forces of evil, Hamlin. I can't remember what the exact quote was, but we've got Jordan Christensen on the podcast.
You will atone.
Hey, I'm in a pickle. I better call Saul. Guys, we're doing it.
Those ads are amazing.
The TV ads. Look them all up. They're great. Guys, today it is happening. We're reviewing Better Call Saul. Arguably one of the top 10 greatest TV shows of all time. Have we done top 10 TV shows on this podcast?
That'll be our next 50.
Is that our next 50? Wait, 50.
50.
Oh, our next, the 50th episode or whatever.
And speaking of our next 50th, Ty, guess what I just pre-ordered?
What about top 10 actresses of all time? Is that ever going to happen?
One day. But Ty...
We hate women on this podcast.
That's not true. But I just ordered, and it's coming from Japan, is Cube, the remake made in Japan. So we'll watch Cube, and then we'll...
I'm going to have to change my region code to watch it again, aren't I?
No, this one actually I double-checked. It's region A. Oh, which, yeah, if you watch
Region
The Cure...
A.
Which was region B.
Well, no, you keep saying A and B. I had 1 and 2. On my PlayStation 5, it says region 1 or region 2.
Yeah, 1 is A, 2 is B.
Well, I probably figured that, but it's just funny to hear you say A and B. Does it actually say A or B on yours?
Yeah, it says A, and if you look on the Blu-ray, it says B.
Oh, okay, like on the disc. Yeah, I didn't really look at the disc. In fact, I'm pretty sure I didn't insert it the proper way. The first time I put it in the PlayStation 5, I was like, it spat it out, and I was like, oh, I can't read the disc. And I was like, oh, sorry, I won't be able to play it. And then I'm like, why don't you try it the other way, numbskull? And I put it in, I'm like, oh, yeah, it works just fine. Well, it did, and then it said, top menu. You can't play this, unfortunately, because this is, and it said, we're sorry, this video doesn't belong in your PlayStation.
Wait, Ty.
Like, what's going on?
Before I forget, so somebody just told me that the movie we just watched and reviewed, The Black Phone, was written by Stephen King's kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why it felt like it.
Yeah, it did have a lot of those elements to it. It's really well done, though. I liked it, and it's kind of cool when you see...
It just reminds me of, like, Brandon Cronenberg, like, writing, like his dad, David.
Dude, I thought David Cronenberg was dead. He's alive.
Yeah, he just made a movie with Viggo Mortensen.
That's what I'm saying. That's actually why I thought of it. And I was like, oh, I didn't know he was still alive. I thought his son was making movies because his dad died.
No, his aunt did die, and she did the practical effects in Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, got it. Okay. Aunt died. Tragic.
Dude, but all the Cronenbergs, man, they make crazy movies.
They're wild. They're a wild bunch. Just like this show. Guys, Better Call Saul is the craziest show. This is the craziest show. And when I say crazy, this is very, very slow. My wife says it's boring, and that's why I freaking love it. I love Better Call Saul. I arguably like it better than Breaking Bad. Yeah, I am anticipating this more than Breaking Bad. However, I would say bingeability.
No, the last season?
Bingeability. Yeah, bingeability. Breaking Bad has 1 or 2 of the greatest episodes in TV, like ever. The Crawl Space, that's the episode I'm referring to. It's like one of the best TV
How about when he hucks the shard of whatever that was? A tweak of mercury?
This is not crack. That's great. There's just incredible, unforgettable moments. But like as episodes of a whole, this show, like I am so eagerly awaiting the second half of season 6.
No,
I can't wait
the last season of Breaking Bad, I have never been more hyped and excited about. I'm sorry.
Now, remind me again. Did you watch the show in its entirety, and you were waiting for season 5 to roll out?
Yeah,
right?
I watched everything up until the last season. The last season wasn't available yet.
It's coming out. Yeah. See, I returned home from my mission, and basically the whole show had already happened. All the hype for it had largely died down, so I watched it on my own. But I did love it. I just breezed through the whole thing, and then right after I started watching The Walking Dead, that did not hold my excitement as much as Breaking Bad did, for sure. Like I was like, in fact, that's why I dropped off.
Except the Walking Dead video game, that one got your interest.
Oh yeah. Well, I've already said many times on this show that it goes comic book. Oh, actually, it's arguable. I actually like the video game more than the comic book, but it's hard to say you like the video game because it's obviously adapted and largely inspired, obviously, by Robert Kirkman's graphic novel.
Yeah.
But anyway, both are certainly much better than the TV show, and all that nonsense and shenanigan. What am I trying to say? Chicanery. What's the word I'm trying to use?
Shenanigans.
The shenanigans.
Bob Odenkirk. Dude, he steals the show. He kills it.
Dude, everyone's pulling 100%.
Yeah.
I love Ray Shehorn. She's great. I think she's amazing. And I watched her. I'm like, you know what? She looks so much like June Diane Raphael, Paul Scheer's wife. I at least think she looks like her. But anyway, she's way cooler and way stoic. I think she's an amazing... Kim Wexler's character is
I'm shocked she's not in more stuff.
Different.
She really killed it.
She blew it out of the park. I mean, they better be winning Emmys, like up the Like this.
I'm
this
pretty sure
next
they were nominated.
season.
If not,
I know they're
won.
Emmy nominated now, but I'm like, they better win all the awards. You know, I mean, seriously. Okay, so this show, it started back in 2015, and it's been going on to present, and they're going to be finishing the second half. What's weird is they do the final seasons in like 2 halves now. I wonder if that's for awards season time. Like they can like double up the awards. I knew they do that for Breaking Bad. They technically had season 5, and then they called something the final season, and it's only 3 episodes.
I mean, Stranger Things.
Right, but it's only 3 episodes. Well, see, Stranger Things has done 2 seasons. But that was the funny part, though, because now they have a whole nother season coming out of Stranger Things.
Oh, yeah.
I just finished it last night. I actually read somewhere that it had ended, but now everyone's like, okay, what's season 4? It does to set up season 5. I'm like, did I imagine that this was going to be the finale? Because someone had written an article saying, like, it's a good thing. Don't worry if you're worried about wrapping up the story. The last 2 episodes, the second to last was like an hour, almost an hour and a half, I think. The final episode of season 2 was 2.5 hours. I'm sitting there, like, this is longer than like most of the movies you see in theater these days. But again, like streaming, you're like, it's not a commitment. You could start it, binge watch it, and then stop watching when you have to go to bed at 2 a.m. because you stay up too late. You're like, I couldn't possibly watch a 90-minute film. That's too much of a commitment. I'll watch a 2-hour and 30-minute episode of Stranger Things. Oh, my goodness. We live in the streaming world. This is the streaming age, folks.
Dude, Vince is one of the best writers. I can't get over...
Yes, so so it's created and written by Vince Gilligan, it's Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould. I always get the 2 names confused. I always say Peter Gilligan, I don't know why. Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould. These 2 are unbelievable. I love that they sit down in a writer's room. It's not like J.J. Abrams where they're like, oh, it's a mystery box. It's like they literally challenge each other and they say, what's the coolest and craziest thing that could happen right here? They write it on the board, no matter how crazy and unseemingly likely, but they put it down on a board and then like, okay, if that were to happen, how could we write ourselves out of this situation? Like, that's why you got the amazing pilot episode of Breaking Bad, where you literally have Walter White, like, writing signing off on a video confession saying, like, if you find this, I'm sorry. Like, he literally, it's like, it's the end of him. And he lasted, like, 1 day. He cooked crystal meth 1 time. 2 people are, like, almost dead, nearly dead. There's already a hit on their head. Like, it's a total failure. And that's where they start the show. And he literally builds up from there. And it's like, you almost think like lesser writers would be trapped into a corner with plot lines like these, and yet they write themselves out in a logical and an incredibly satisfying way. So,
yes,
very impressed with the show. Considering this is a sequel, or excuse me, a spin-off prequel to an amazing show already received, Breaking Bad. That's what makes this so crazy. Is like, well, you already understand where these characters are headed, or at least you know that there's no peril that they could technically be in, because you're like, well, you already know that they survived. But there's so many other ways to add tension and drama, even though you know certain outcomes of certain characters' well-being. The journey they go through is so unbelievable. Like, this show is so well written.
It's good.
Unbelievably matched. It's like, it's unmatched by most of the things on TV like I've ever seen. So, love the show. And the characters, we got to get into it. Bob Odenkirk, Ray Seahorn, Jonathan Banks, coming back from days of Community. It's so funny. He doesn't belong on Community, but I love that he was on that. Michael Mando, Nacho, my man. Patrick Fabian, Howard Hamlin. He's amazing. It's just like, and I want to talk about his character in particular. Giancarlo Exposito, Gus Fring, terrifying villain coming back. Michael Mckean, who I love from days of like This Is Spinal Tap and A Mighty Wind. He was involved in all those with Christopher Guest. Tony Dalton, who plays Lalo Salamanca. Oh my gosh, he's having like a renaissance. Like, he was in Hawkeye. He was in this show. He's been in all kinds of things. He's popping up. Mandalorian. The boy. Yeah, he's been in like everything. I'm like, dude, they just realized the joy that Tony Dalton is, and they're definitely using him. They're milking it, man.
Cameron hasn't even seen Breaking Bad, and he was like, I want them to bring him back in The Boys. I was like, oh man, so good.
Oh, dude. Yeah, wait till he see. Oh, dude, he needs to watch this. Grant's watching Better Call Saul now, right?
Yes, he's watched Breaking Bad, and he's watching Better Call Saul right now.
He's watching Saul. Oh my gosh, he's so lucky. It also stars Mark Margolis, who plays Hector Salamanca, who I love, the most terrifying wheelchair or disabled person I've ever seen in a movie.
Well, you know what I love is that they aren't like using de-aging and all this stuff. It's like, you know what? It's okay that even though this is technically a prequel, like they're older, that's fine. Like I love that they just move past it. They don't sit there.
Yeah, it's like I can suspend my disbelief.
Yes.
Very fine, thank you.
Yeah,
like,
I don't need to sit there and be like, oh, why he's older now. Let's try to make sense of this. It's like, no, we get it. He's older in real life.
You get Irishman. You get, why does young Robert De Niro hobble around like he's 80 years old? Why can't he move as nimbly as an age, supposedly as a man his age? When I watch this, it's like, okay, like it doesn't insult my intelligence. Bob Odenkirk, he looks more handsome than he did in Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad, he looked a little chubby. It almost reminds me of Michael Scott in the first season of Michael Scott. You have Steve Carell that looked a little chubby. He didn't have hair plugs at the time. And then season 2, he's like super fit and cut. He's got hair plugs. He looks much more handsome. But there's a hilarious episode where they literally had Michael Scott, they were celebrating his birthday and they go to the hockey rink. And there's a picture of him from season 1. And it looks so unflattering. I die laughing when I see it. It's like the most unflattering photo of Steve Carell.
It's so good.
So funny from season 1 before his hair plugs. And it's so funny. It's laughable because you see it and you're like, you noticeable difference, but they just laugh at it. You know, it's awesome, dude. He's in showbiz now. He's now a big deal. He's the biggest comedian star, rising star when The Office came out. So it's like, yep, get in shape. You get a contract, you know. Let's go. Get some hair plugs. Oh, speaking of hair plugs, dude, this show is filled with so many unbelievable characters. Like, Howard Hamlin, he's got to be the least relatable character in a TV show I've seen as of late, and yet I really cared what happened to him. Like,
Is that Mike Novick? Who's Howard?
Patrick Fabian plays Howard Hamlin. He's the blonde lawyer.
Oh, yeah, he's
like,
great.
Jimmy McGill, yes. Like, he's always like, I don't even know how to describe him, but he's like, Jimmy, of course. Like, he's like really nice, but you like love to hate him, and you almost don't understand that. Like,
not hate him enough though for him to die like that.
No,
that
see,
was
that's my point.
devastating,
That's my point. This guy is like has everything. He's this rich, fancy lawyer. He seems to have everything going for him, and then of course it's revealed the episode in which, heaven forbid, that he gets taken out, which is unbelievable. Grant, don't be listening to this until you finish the show. Spoilers on this podcast, so make sure that's very clear.
You spoiled it, then tell him not to listen.
Exactly. And listeners, Howard Hamlin dying was one of the most heart-wrenching and most horrifying cliffhangers I've ever seen in show. Like, Lalo shows up just unannounced at their apartment, and it's so great because there's a little motif of the candle opening when Howard Hamlin walks in. The candle flickers on the top of the coffee table. Kim notices it. And then later on, when Howard and them are having this scene, because Howard's on to them, you guys playing this whole thing, you guys are trying to ruin my life, but I'm going to come out on top of this. And then the candle flickers again, signifying that someone else has walked through the door, and it's Lalo. Lalo just walks in. Kim and James are like, get the heck out of here, Howard. You have no idea, like, this guy, who he is. You need to get out now. And he's like, you want my advice? Get different lawyers. And then, of course, he pulls out the gun and just shoots him right in the head. It's so tragic. I
have mad respect for those little details.
What's so crazy is, okay, so when I mentioned the Reddit, or even just a wormhole I went down online, I was watching YouTube videos about just episode breakdowns because I love watching it, because I love seeing what other people online have caught, if they caught the details that I did, and the ones that they didn't catch, the ones that they caught that I didn't. And I love that because this show is just so rich. It's almost like a Rick and Morty episode where there's just so much content, but like this one, it doesn't beat you over the head and is really slow. So like you should be catching everything that's happening, but there's callbacks from like 4 or 5 seasons ago. Like, that's crazy. And you might be like, oh, that's not fair. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Because like I've seen this show over the course of 10 years. When you say it's a callback,
it's not a Disney callback where they're like, shove it in your face, like, see, remember this thing you like?
No. It's not nostalgia. It's a callback from a season from the same show.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't, like, that's what's crazy about this show. This is supposed to be like a tether between this and Breaking Bad. So far, we have not yet to see Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul playing their characters, Jesse Pinkman and Walter White. Like, none of that. Like, this show is like, it's its own thing. And of course, you see, like, at the very first season, I almost thought like there was going to be more of that. They showed Tuco, which was such a hilarious, crazy, manic villain from the first season. And you're like, oh, they're going to do, but he's very quickly escorted off. Like, he briefly runs into Saul, and it's horrifying. Abuela, return to your room and watch your teleserie. Ay, mi teleserie. Mi telenovelas.
My telenovelas. My sister-in-law, when she saw both Walter White and Jesse Pinkman at Costco giving out their alcohol, like, she asked them, she's like, we watched the first half and we didn't see you guys. They're like, oh, better wait till the second half.
They have to bring them in. They will, like, because it'll be the bridge. But I'm curious as to whether or not, okay, so like, this is all getting to speculation, so we can get into good and bad, and then we'll talk about my speculation. So real quick, what are your 2 favorite things from this show, Jordan?
I mean, we've already mentioned it, but the writing is unbelievable. And then going into that, it would be how he, and you've mentioned this too, is how he lets things play out. It just reminds me of not Green Room, but Blue Ruin, where you just sit there and like he's like doing something, and you're like, what's going on here? And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is what they're doing. Like this happens.
It's like
so
a mystery. What
someone's
doing? They'll do like a whole scene where it's like 20 or not 20, but like 2-3 minutes where you have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, it's just seemingly a bunch of images that make no sense, or a task someone's performing and it makes no sense. And even maybe at the very
they set
end
up
of the
that
episode,
booby trap to kill that motorcycle guy. Like, you're like, what's going on here?
What is going on? Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's wild. Or sometimes Mike will be like doing something like with a safe, and it's like, 10-minute long segment of him just like manipulating the safe, and then you find out he opens it, replaces it with a new, and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. But yeah, the painstaking time that they took to do certain throwing the shoes up on the
that's
power
how
line,
life is, and so it's really fun to see kind of the day in the life of a criminal, especially if you're not familiar with how they go about doing things. Like, that's why Shameless, there's a lot of that in it, and it was like how very poor people got by, and like, and they did things that you were like, wait, what are they doing here? And then you're like, oh my gosh, like, they just robbed that guy blind.
Oh my gosh, are these the bad guys? So people that are listening to the episode, this podcast, and don't know what Better Call Saul. Am I the villain? So I wanted to give a quick plot recap. The IMDb says the trials and tribulations of a criminal lawyer, Jimmy McGill, in the time before he established his strip mall law office in Albuquerque, New Mexico, as Saul Goodman. It's all good, man.
Well, and I love how easy they could have died in the desert. Like, it's amazing, like, to think, because especially as, like, every big Hollywood movie, it's like, they're going to be fine. They'll make it to the end. They'll be okay. But this show, it's like, oh my gosh, they could die out in the desert right now because they made a dumb choice or decision.
Yes. What's really cool about this, too, is, like, that's the Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, like their willingness to let characters make really horrific decisions, and yet you'll still find it almost reminds me again of Dan Harmon's characters, where they're almost reprehensible, and yet you still understand their motive. So whether or not you support the characters in their decision, you at least understand full well the motivation behind every decision, even if it's a surprise and a reveal later on. They do such a good job at that, because to me, I almost don't even care whether or not I morally side with someone, especially when watching TV and movies, because in the end, I'm like, that's all fiction.
Season 3, Ty, all the characters kind of are horrible, disgusting human beings.
They're all horrible. But what's so tragic is, like, they're all directly affected by Walter White's decision. So you could put all the blame on him, which is, again,
I don't know. Hank, though, he just should not have been treating his wife that bad. I'm sorry.
No, but again, he was literally being affected by the cartels ramping up of all this crime, which was all linked to Walter White. I'm not, whether he was directly responsible or indirectly responsible, like those two F-47s colliding into each other, that was indirectly, well, actually, that was directly his fault. He literally got Jane killed, and his father, I know, has a responsibility.
Yeah. That's like blaming your parents, like these young kids blaming their parents for all their bad decisions.
I hate you, Dad! Where were you my entire childhood? Look at me, I'm messed up, man. Look at all these bad decisions I'm making. Oh, man. But anyway, I will say my one knock on this show was the first season. I wanted there to be more court cases. I really thought it would be more like criminal lawyer stuff, like in the courtroom. That's very little of the show, which is fine with me now, because like I am strapped in for the ride.
I know. I'm so glad it wasn't, because they actually have TV shows that are dedicated to nothing.
They do. They have dedicated to lawyer shows. So actually, I remember thinking, they're like, well, if you like Breaking Bad and you want to watch, or you were watching Better Call Saul and you want to watch more, here are other shows like it. And I watched some lawyer case. I'm like, they're kind of boring. You know? Like, so they did a really good job at just showing a day in his life, and then they do all the other stuff outside the courtroom, because in the end, the courtroom is kind of boring and it's not even sensationalized. But what's so great is how Jimmy frames things, and again, whether you're on board for him or not, you understand why he did the things he does, and you get to decide where the jumping off point is. Like, has he gone too far? Is Ray, is Kim Wexler's character, is she the bad influence on Jimmy, or is Jimmy a bad influence on her? What's their deal? But to the two of them together are like genitonic. They're evil. Like they inspire each other to do bad things, and I just find that so fascinating.
I love bad influences going off of what you were just saying, that even though I'm not giving him like an excuse to do the horrible things he's done, but after meeting his brother and that whole dynamic, you would think it's like, oh, well, that's the reason he is why he is. Like, it just gives a reason, not a reason, but what's the word?
Strong motive.
Yeah, it helps you understand why he is the way he is. But
absolutely.
I mean, yeah, it's just it's so devastating because it's almost a tragic character study.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, that was the whole point of Breaking Bad, right? It's like 5 seasons. They were like, okay, this is his whole story arc. They had it mapped out from the beginning. And so obviously with this show, it was so fun to start again with James McGill because his character getting introduced in Breaking Bad was such a fun, like, he's the comedic relief. He's like this sleazy criminal lawyer. He's like, when you're in trouble with the law, you need a criminal lawyer. And I don't mean a criminal lawyer. I mean a criminal lawyer. And that's his character in the whole show. Better call Saul. If you want to keep the money that you launder and you want to keep it from getting into the hands of the feds, better call Saul. Like, that was his character from the very first episode. It was so great. When you watch the show, Jimmy McGill is like such a nice guy. He's so sweet. Everyone's just kicking sand in his face. Like, he's constantly getting beat. Chuck has it against him. He's like humiliated.
He literally
by his
kills
brother.
himself to ruin him. That's insane.
See, that's the thing too. I was going to tell you, like, I don't like the true villain. I would say is Chuck.
Yes,
he's an evil.
He is
bastard.
Pure evil.
Gus Fring is like terrifying sociopath serial killer, but like Chuck McGill is like a whole nother level of like passive aggressive hatred toward his own brother, embarrassment from him.
See, to the point where, what if I was that to you? You didn't turn out so bad.
Yeah, exactly. I'm Jimmy. I'm the nice one. You're the evil one. You're gonna kill yourself just to get back, dude. Kicking that lantern. Oh my gosh, dude. The show is so unreal, and again, just unpredictable. Like Chuck's whole thing about what is it called? Like he gets like feels hurt by electromagnetic pulses or whatever. He can't stand the batteries. He can't stand electricity, lights, and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Chuck's character. That disease I thought was so fascinating because I'm like, this is ridiculous. And he literally got him dead to rights with the fact that he had a charged cell phone in his pocket. He throws it out on the court floor and he's like, no, you can't listen to Tim. He's like, he's crazy. And he just has a full meltdown. And you're like, you really see him expose his ugly true character. And then again, this is one of the nicest drug dealers, Nacho. He's one of the sweetest guys. I loved him. I wanted him to have a good, happy ending. And what was so tragic is you know that he has no mention of him in Breaking Bad. And you're like, what's going to happen to Nacho? I'm devastated. What's going to happen? Just when you think he's about to get out, there's no way out for him except he can self-sacrifice and get his father out. It's just so amazing. It's unbelievable. Gosh,
I know. I love Nacho so much. Oh my gosh.
Nacho was so great, dude. Michael Mando, I want to see him get more work. Like, he needs to be nominated for an Emmy. Kim Wexler, Ray Shehorn, Bob Odenkirk, every one of them deserve it. Jonathan Banks, they all deserve Emmys. Patrick Fabian, he better fetching win an Emmy for his show. Like, this final season was unbelievable. Like, watching Howard Hamlin go as a character that was so untenably, like, unrelatable. Like, you just couldn't, like, who can relate to a fancy, rich, blonde lawyer with blue eyes that has, like, everything that he could possibly want? And at the very last episode, you find out, like, he's having trouble at home with his wife. Like, he and his wife aren't even talking. Like, he's suffering from depression. He goes and sees a psychiatrist, and you're like, you started to crack in this perception you have of this character this entire show. It's like all being crumbled and chipped away at, and then all of a sudden you're left with like a very vulnerable. You almost don't understand Kim and Jimmy's obsession with ruining his life, trying to take him down, and then at the very end it's like revealed like, oh no, he's gonna be fine, and then he's not fine, and oh my gosh, it's horrifying. And then you see like, okay, so here's where we got to get into the things like, okay, do you have any nitpicks from the show? I had like none. I don't have a single nitpick. I just wish there was more courtroom stuff, but that sounds so silly because, again, I love the show. I wouldn't have done anything else with it. I just remember watching the first season being like, I wanted to see him doing more deals with, like, shady criminals, but he slowly transforms into that.
I like his transformation, yeah.
Now, this last season, you have the criminals showing up at his place because he's a friend of the cartel, and you realize all these shady people start filing in, and it almost breaks your heart because you're like, he's been trying to play it straight. He's been trying to play by the rules, and he just constantly kept kicked while he was down. They constantly, through every obstacle, they threw the book at him, everything they could to derail him from being an actual lawyer. They didn't take him seriously. He was the laughingstock of of the law firms, but he still always outsmarted and outwit them. And even at times where he had to do criminal stuff, you were like, oh gosh dang it, but I support you, man. You're like, how evil everyone's been to you. It's just not fair. It's not fair. He cannot get ahead. He can't catch a break. That's what's so great about this show. My goodness. But anyway, so I want to get into the predictions. Jordan, so what's crazy about this show is, so Breaking Bad, you had the story 5 seasons of what happens to Walter White exclusively. They ended it with pretty ambiguous with Jesse, which was so cool that they came out with a movie called El Camino, which shows Jesse's
so
epilogue, which is really well done.
It's like a Western.
Great movie.
It's so good.
It is a modern day Western, and it's unbelievably good. It's, you know, it's money, it's a heist, it's got gunslinging, it's got all the things that you love about Breaking Bad.
They even have a shootout at the end. Like, how awesome is that?
Oh, and you're just hoping it doesn't happen, and then you hope it does happen. It's so good. So El Camino was a great movie that ended Jesse's character, and you almost thought they could have done a whole series about him, but he was such a big part of Breaking Bad. I don't know how you go and make it.
Well, he wasn't even supposed to be in the show Breaking Bad. He was supposed to die.
He was supposed to be written off, but because he was such a fun character, they kept him around, and it was so good that they did, because they needed the other side of the coin from Walter White. They needed like the innocent, naive person like Jesse Pinkman, assuming like the best intentions of Walter White, but constantly being badgered and harmed by Walter White's decisions and his greed. And he was such an important, vital character. I don't know how the show worked without him, and it wouldn't have ultimately. So it's amazing that they kept him around as long as they did, because Aaron Paul, it's arguably his best performance. I haven't seen it. Unfortunately, I think he acted and starred in a Need for Speed movie that didn't do all that good, so no one's giving Aaron Paul a chance. But I'm like, I know he's a good actor. Watch Breaking Bad.
He makes little appearances here and there.
Yeah, he just needs more work, is my point. He's a great actor. I love him. So I want to see Aaron Paul get more work. What was I going to say? So this show, so you have Jesse and Walter White. You have his whole story. You have Jesse Pinkman's story. Now it's like, okay, here we are. We have Bob Odenkirk's story. And what's crazy is we don't know what happens to him at the end of Breaking Bad. His story is left ambiguous. And what's so great about Better Call Saul is they've shown an epilogue. They do it in black and white. They show he's no longer Jimmy McGill. He's like, what's his name? It's like, I don't even remember his name. He's like, he owns a Cinnabon. He's like, they call it Larry or something like that. Oh, what's his name? I'm blanking on his name right now. Dang it, it's embarrassing. Do you remember his name? He works at Cinnabon. He's a manager of a Cinnabon in Lincoln, Nebraska. But anyway, so he has like an alter ego because he went into witness protection. He had to protect his identity because he's on the run, right? But what's amazing is they keep cutting back and forth, and like it's very menacing. Something's going on. Like a private investigator or someone recognizes him and calls him out for being Saul Goodman. And he's like, yeah, you're the lawyer from the TV show. Just say it. Say it right now. And he's like, Better Call Saul. He's like, there it is. Was that so hard? It's terrifying. So you're like, he's either been found out. I don't know if it was a private investigator hired from someone from the show, or if it was one of Gus's people, one of Lalo's people, or if it was someone from...
You don't think it's just a random person?
No, dude, no way. No way. So here's the thing. So the show, what's so great about Breaking Bad is there's a few throwaway lines that they actually wrote into the show. So what's amazing is Jesse Pinkman and Walter White take him out to the desert and threaten to kill Saul.
Yeah.
And he thinks immediately that it's Lalo. And he's like, no, it wasn't me. He's like, it was Nacho. Nacho's the one that did all. So he was throwing Nacho Vargas under the bus. And Nacho, tragically, has already met his end. But Nacho Vargas is unaware, James McGill, unaware of Nacho's fate. He's like, oh, it was Nacho. He's the one that, betrayed the cartel, because he and Nacho work together and try to betray Hector Salamanca. Not work together per se, but Mike Ehrmantraut, he is basically recruited Nacho to work for Gus Fring, even though he's with the Hector Salamanca. So Nacho was in a rock in a hard place. Like, he wants to get out of this drug game. It's getting way too hot, for him, and he can't get out. So his father's being threatened and everything. So Nacho was just like this tragic character that you wish could get out. So it's amazing. This was a throwaway line in Breaking Bad, and they ended up making like one of the most compelling characters of all time in TV. And so Nacho's character is so tragic. And then when he's like, oh, no, Lalo sent you? And he's also referring to another criminal, Lalo Salamanca, who's in the family of the Salamancas and the drug trade, who plays a horrific sociopathic killer. Like, kills indiscriminately. Like, friends, family, he'll kill anyone if it gets him ahead. Like, he's a crazy person. So he's another great character. But again, these were throwaway lines from Breaking Bad that they end up writing this whole show, Better Call Saul, around, which was really funny. So in the end, the throwaway line, like, I'm going to end up as some Cinnabon, manager in Lincoln, Nebraska. That's literally where James McGill ends up. He ends up as a Cinnabon worker, and they have these scenes in this story. It's after Breaking Bad, so you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to have an epilogue of Saul's life at the end of Better Call Saul, while they're still showing what currently happened and what led him to the character we know, Better Call Saul, Saul Goodman, and the transformation between the two. So it's an amazing bridge, but we're also going to get an epilogue, and I want wanted to ask you, Jordan, do you think it's possible with 7 more episodes to go? Do you think that they have one episode like fully black and white, and they show literally a whole epilogue of James McGill's life after the events of Breaking Bad, or do you think it's just going to be a simple 2 or 3 minute segment? Like, I almost fantasize about a whole episode of just his life and the outcome that he has. I'd like to think that he and Kim are going to end up together, but they're almost tragic characters because Kim is a bad influence on Jimmy and Jimmy's a bad influence on Kim. Like, I almost think that they're destined not to be together. They almost shouldn't be together, you know? I don't know. What do you think?
They seem to like to give pretty good endings. Like, the only ending we didn't really get was Jesse, but they finally gave him an ending in El Camino. I mean, him driving off into the distance screaming, I mean, I still saw it as a good ending for him, even if it didn't.
Good enough for the time being.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they're going to wrap it up pretty nicely. Like, even...
Okay, so how do you predict that this ends? There's 7 episodes left. They have to bridge Breaking Bad.
That's my favorite part about Breaking Bad. I mean, the Breaking Bad and this is... I have no clue where anything goes. That is why I love these writers. This is like, it's so much Disney stuff. Everything else is so predictable.
Predictable.
And this is like, I have no idea what's going to happen next. I love it.
Right. So here's my prediction, okay? So it's now July 6th, 2022. I've not seen the last 6 episodes of season 6. And this is my prediction. So we know what happened to Nacho. We know what's going to happen with Mike. We know what's happening with Fring. But we do not know necessarily what's going to happen to James McGill and what's going to happen to Kim, what's going to happen to Lalo. These are very undecided characters because Lalo, there's no mention, well, there's only mention of him in Breaking Bad, but that's from Saul Goodman. So Saul cannot know what happens to Lalo. My prediction is Lalo is going to try to use James McGill to get into the laundromat and discover his meth lab that he's cooking, he's creating under his laundromat business, right? So Gus... I think Gus and Lalo are going to have a confrontation, and Gus is going to kill Lalo and bury him underneath the foundation of this meth lab, which will kind of give the whole lab area, like, it's a bittersweet end because, again, he was trying to discover the proof and give it to Hector Salamanca, so Salamanca and what's the one drug pin guy?
Somebody said they thought they heard Pablo's name in not Pablo. Who's the guy that you think is going to meet his end?
Oh, so Lalo.
Lalo's character. So somebody said they thought they heard his name in Breaking Bad, so he might not be dead.
It is mentioned.
There is a chance that he's not dead. That's what I heard.
Right. No, that it's possible, but like I said, I just don't think that. So Gus Fring is going to ensure that there's no loose ends. No one's going to know what happened to Lalo. But Mike Ehrmantraut and Gus Fring are going to very much know what happens to Lalo. I think they're going to bury him under that factory.
There's a possibility, but I'm just saying.
It's got to be it. It's going to be a confrontation. They're going to try to set a trap for him, and Lalo's going to get bettered by Gus. Because, again, don't forget, Gus is a ruthless killer by Breaking Bad. And you almost wonder, like, where this came from. In the show, they show him how he's OCD and how he's very careful and meticulous. This is going to be a showdown between Lalo and Gus Fring. That's what I believe. And I'm very excited for that. It's going to be an epic showdown. It's just going to be 2 men playing chess, 4D chess against each other. And Mike Ehrmantraut, his whole character arc, is becoming a killer, a hired gunman where he had morals and, scrupulous gun for hire. But, hey, I'll be a muscle. I'll enforce what you're telling me. But I don't kill women. I don't kill children. I don't do any of this stuff. And then, very soon he's killing old innocent men that refuse to abide by the Gus Fring's rules. And he has to grapple with terms like, with outcomes like that. So again, it's so good. My goodness, he's doing it all for his granddaughter, who he cares deeply about, and his daughter, of course. But oh my gosh, so I think that's what happens to Lalo. I think he gets buried. Mike Ehrmantraut and Gus Fring set a trap for him, and they bury him. And what's so great is I think that Kim is going to feel so guilty about Howard Hamlin's death because he only showed up at their apartment because of this elaborate hoax that they pulled on him, or I don't even know what to call it, like a Ocean's, what do you call that? A heist? It's almost like a heist. They almost framed Howard Hamlin to be a drug addict. They put chemicals in the photographs that he was holding, so his pupils dilated. They literally set it out to where it appeared that he was losing his mind and he was on drugs, and they cost him this important client. But he would bounce back from it. He assures them, but then Lalo shows up and literally ends his life then and there. Horrifying end to Howard Hamlin's character. So again, I think Kim is going to be so devastated. Again, they have had no time because the show ends right there. He's shot in the head. The show ends and Lalo's like, let's
that
talk.
ending totally reminded me of like every ending of Ozark. Every season always ended with somebody getting shot in the face.
Yes, but this one, it's different just because, one, it's not the ending of the show, which, oh my gosh, Ozark, don't even get me started. Ben, the boy, pulling the trigger on the PI, it's like, what? Why? Like, why did they kill Wendy in that car accident? I do not understand. They must have done test audiences and they thought people wanted Wendy to survive. She's evil. She's irredeemable. She's horrible. I was just waiting for her to die so Jason Bateman could get away scot-free with his kids. But no, they all survived. I'm like, okay. Big mistake.
I hate Wendy so much.
Oh, I hated the show's ending. I'm sorry. Better Ozark, they did not know how to end that show. It literally ends with someone pulling the trigger, like, or fade to black, and then the gunshot goes off.
They need to hire...
This one's still different because, again, like, this is a show wrapping up, and this technically was an end to a season, which was a perfect cliffhanger. Oh, it's not even a season. Sorry. This is like a halfway point at the season of the final season. So, again, I give them kudos because, again, I felt this. I rewound it like 4 or 5 times. Ozark, I just laughed, and I let the credits roll, and I'm like, I've got to find something else to watch now. I rewatched the Lalo showing up with Howard Hamlin. I watched it like 4 or 5 times. I literally had to rewatch. I just couldn't believe what I saw.
Yeah, I can't wait to rewatch this whole series. So good.
Oh, I cannot. I know. I'm going to rewatch it with my teenagers. I cannot wait. We're watching Better Call Saul.
Yeah, I'm rewatching Breaking Bad. It's so good. It's so good.
It's so addicting.
It's just as good as it was the first time.
And you forget about little details, and you're like, my gosh, like the show is in good hands. Like it's very well done. So anyway, so my prediction: Kim is going to feel so bad about what happened to Howard. It's going to put a strain on Jimmy and Kim's relationship, and I think that they fall apart naturally. Or secondly, she ends up getting some of the blame for it and actually ends up going to prison. There's a line in Breaking Bad where he has all those burner phones in his desktop drawer, and he says to his secretary, he's like, make the call, because this is right before he calls the vacuum disappearing service, where he can literally get a new identity and disappear. He's like, make sure that when they call, and this is very common for criminals, they only have a certain time frame in which they can make calls, collect calls from prison. And he says to his secretary, like, make sure with the phone call, like, he mentions a specific time, like at 3 or something like that. And you don't understand what that is. And that's actually, I almost thought it was another throwaway line, but I can't help but think that maybe Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould actually knew that they were going to create a show about Better Call Saul's character, and so that was almost a throwaway line that they put in there intentionally in case they did go ahead with that project. Because in the end, you could assume it was just him talking about other clients that he had in prison, and he's like, make sure that they all get their, a nice bow, because he's disappearing forever. But I think there's a possibility where they're going to show some future timeline where it's going to be black and white, and Jimmy McGill and Kim, he ends up picking her up from prison somewhere. Like, she gets out, like, she's either been disbarred and she's been in prison, possibly even as much as, incarcerated, and then he goes and picks her up, and that's the end of the show. Like, I almost feel like they could end up together because something's going to happen. Like Kim and Jimmy are they're not together. They're all Breaking Bad, and there's no mention of her. But again, it's like, what would cause a falling out of the relationship? They're husband and wife. Like, there has to be something. And she better not die. If she dies, I'm going to be so devastated. Like, I hope she doesn't die. And I can't help but think that Lalo might kill her, and it would ruin Saul. It would ruin Jimmy, and that's what would turn him into Saul, because, like, what else does he care about in life? Like, he has nothing. He loses his love of his life, and he's got no direction. He's aimless. He's lost his brother, and he's going to have to blame himself. He's like, the reason she's dead is because I got involved with the cartel in the first place. So again, I'm devastated to think that's the ending. She better not die. She better survive. Maybe she gets disbarred and she can't practice law anymore, and she can't forgive Jimmy for it. Like, there's so many possibilities, right? Like, they could do all of these things and they would be all valid. They would all be incredibly well done. I know whatever they end up going with, it'll be super good. But anyway, I almost could see a future where, like, she hires a PI. Maybe Kim's the one that hired the PI to find Saul. That would be a cool ending too, because then she's like, I knew you were alive. Like, I knew you didn't die or whatever. You disappeared. I knew that you were out there. And so she hired the investigator and found Saul.
Or it's going to be that Tom Cruise ending. What's that? American Made, when they just walk up behind him in the car.
Oh my gosh, dude, don't say that. See, I know. See, like, that's totally possible too. Like, all these are totally legitimate.
And that would be an ending that would make sense, because there's not really a happy ending for this.
For everyone in this gang.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, everyone in Breaking Bad, like, they've had tragic ends. I mean, even Jesse Pinkman had the best ending he possibly could, but it's still devastating the fact that the one girl he tried to settle, 2 of the girls that he tried to settle down with were literally impacted by Walter White and his evil gang, of the drug running.
Or maybe
so
they'll just open it up and be like, oh, guess what? They open up to a whole another TV series.
I know, they're like, here's Gus Fring, or even Nacho. I could watch a whole, or maybe the 2 crazy twins, the Salamanca twins with the suit jackets. And I like it. They're good, like, horror, whatever, but they're not my
favorite.
Which is why they're not overutilized, which is amazing. They only show up like 2 or 3 times.
They're in the show just enough. Like, I like it, but the whole not talking thing, like, I don't know. It just, for some reason, I don't dig that. I don't know.
Too cool for words, man.
Yeah, it seems kind of...
We should bring him on the show, Bring him on the podcast.
Ask us this question.
So, tell us about your role.
And just silence.
All right. Well, very good. All right. Next question. I love it, dude.
Yeah, it seems kind of not cheesy is not the right word. Like, it just seems kind of,
there is a gimmick out there, like a character that's so bad that they don't ever say anything.
And it's like they've achieved even they've gone above being bad A. Like, I don't know. It just seems I don't know.
It's like you don't talk ever.
Like, they're so evil, they, drink the blood of their enemies. I don't know. It just seems crazy, but...
It's amazing. Dude, they meet their end with Hank, dude. It's amazing. Dude, but there's so many great callbacks. Like, even little things like a Statue of Liberty, inflatable Statue of Liberty. Like, something as insignificant as that. It just makes me so excited. Like, I get giddy when I see it, and it shouldn't even mean anything, but it does to me, and that's what's so amazing. They didn't even, make it a big deal. It was just there, and it wasn't like, oh, you remember this from the show? It's like, no, I mean, literally, it's like, what's so good is oh, he copied that from people. Like, these were Saul's clients that he manipulated, and it's like, oh, he's gonna end up taking their business and everything they're worth, and he's gonna take their stupid inflatable Statue of Liberty. It's so good. Anyway, this show's great, guys. Check out Better Call Saul. Watch the show. I love the show. It's I know it's TVMA, but it's pretty darn tame. I know there's definitely scenes.
Yeah, well, compared to The Boys or Game of Thrones, sure.
Right. I mean, it's classy. The show is very classy, so I'd highly recommend it to just about everybody. It's not for kiddos, just because I think they'd be bored. This show is very slow, very methodical.
And Mom says it's too stressful, so...
Really? You try to get Mom to watch it? It is stressful, especially the first season. It's highly stressful,
And I tried to show it to Tatiana, but she just this is too much like work.
I didn't even think about that. She is a criminal lawyer. So, I love it, dude. Well, do you have any quotes that you want to throw out from Saul Goodman's
nothing
character?
I can think of, but the show it's perfect. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing. You go through them, you go through me. That's my best impression of
Mike.
It sounds like Rocky. Yeah, Mike Ehrmantraut. Hector Salamanca. I love every time Giancarlo speaks in Spanish. I love it. He's got almost that I want to say Chilean Spanish, because it's quick, it's fast. He's just amazing. The show's great. So perfect. Gosh, dang it. Welcome to Pollos Hermanos, where something delicious is always cooking. May I help you?
That was a great impression, too. Holy cow.
Gus Fring scares me, dude. So terrifying. Sociopath. Oh, dude, it's amazing, too, how they have, all these meta things on YouTube. You can go up and watch, a Pollos Hermanos training video. It is laugh out loud funny, Jordan. Have you seen it?
I think you sent it to me.
You need to watch it again. It's literally Gus Fring giving, orientation for someone joining the Los Pollos Hermanos family. And he's like, so today's your first day on the job. Don't be stressed. Don't be nervous. And at the very end,
I didn't watch it yet.
Oh, dude, you gotta watch it, because, again, it's like him talking to, high school fry cooks. And it is so unsettling.
Is it as good as the SpongeBob training video, Ty?
Yes. Representing
right when it's gonna say the secret recipe.
The secret formula is credits roll. So funny. That's a gimmick. Anyway, hey, guys, check out the show. So relieved that Bob Odenkirk didn't die. He had a heart scare. I thought he was going to die before they finished the show. I would have been devastated. But again, I'm sure Peter Gould and Vince Gilligan could have just hired anyone else to play him, and I would have gone right along with it. I have to know how the show ends. Otherwise, they would have pulled a, what's it called? What's that name? The Kevin Spacey. They would have just taken him out of the stinking show House of Cards, and I'm like, okay, you have nothing going for your show.
But by then, I wasn't even watching it. I kind of stopped by then.
Yeah, for sure. The show definitely derailed. They didn't know how to finish that one too. Maybe it's just you can only spin a web of lies for so long. Political thrills. Kind of like what we were saying about the courtroom. They largely stayed away from that. This is his story, and it's a good thing that they stayed away from it. So anyway, everybody check out Better Call Saul. It's all good, man. Oh my gosh, it's so great. That's where the name Saul Goodman comes from. It's Saul Goodman. I love it. It's so great. It's an amazing show. Check it out. Jordan, anything you've seen lately or things you're looking forward to seeing?
You go first.
Okay, so I finished season 4 of Stranger Things, and I'm trying to remember the song they had because, you know, they did the Neverending Story at season 3, which was really funny. Yep. And it was going through my head. They have this other one song. It's like Go With God or something like that. I can't remember, but it's a really funny 70s song that's kind of cheesy and corny, but it's like playing through my head constantly. But again, the show did a good job at taking characters that I didn't necessarily like or even understand, and then eventually understanding their motivations. And I'm like, okay. Again, I give them credit because the show is better than the last 2 seasons. I didn't really care for 2 and 3 much. Like, I was pretty much like just signing on to watch them and being like, okay. And I was believed that this was the final season, but of course they kind of tease you and they're like, there's another one coming out. But I'm like, what was the whole 2 hour and 30-minute episode for? Jeez, Netflix. But they don't care. Like, again, if it's well told, I don't really necessarily care. I'm like, as long as the show, like, I never understood this where they're like, oh, the show has to fit like this time frame. It used to, but now with streaming, it's like they don't have commercial breaks. Like, they can make any length of show that they want. And I almost think that for the most part, TV is better for it. Sometimes they're not, because like The Office, you go through and watch deleted scenes and you're like, this is the funniest fetching thing ever. Why did they ever cut this? And it's like, they had to for the sake of time. They had to keep it within 23 to 25 minutes. They couldn't go over and you didn't want to go under. So it was like literally they had to cut things for time, not because it would have made the show any worse. So I'm like, someone should go through and just make The Office once again on Netflix and just put in every single fetching deleted scene that was too funny to take out. And it'd be like watching a whole new show because these are hilarious jokes that just didn't make it in for the sake of time. So anyway, that's my gripe about it. So watching a 2 hour and 30-minute episode, you're like, wait, what? It's fine because in the end, it's like, who cares? Like, it's the show. As long as they're telling the same story and I can still follow the plot and I care about the characters, I'll watch it, you know? Unlike Kenobi, which I thought was going to be 8 episodes, it ended up turning only up to be 6. And my goodness, that Kenobi show was a dumpster fire. My gosh. I can't even think about it longer because it just makes me mad thinking about it. Like, like they gave it to a child and they're like, oh, what if they did this? It's just so bad. It's like when I watch Better Call Saul and I compare it with something like this, I'm like, it's like the people that made it didn't even know what Star Wars was. It was like an AI wrote it. It was like, this is a Star Wars thing, put it in the show. This is a Star Wars thing, put it in the show. It's like, but that doesn't make sense. They're like, it's Star Wars. We own the rights to it. We can do whatever we want. It's crazy. It's baffling. So Ben Kenobi, I'm still scratching my head over it. While I have respect for the Duffer Brothers making a really compelling season 4 of Stranger Things, you should definitely check it out. I like it.
If you like the Duffer Brothers, you should check out their early movie, Hidden.
I want to check out what they've been doing.
Or is it called Hidden? Give me a second.
I can look up their IMDb. But I'm still reeling from The Black Phone. I love hearing it was Stephen King's son that did the story. Because, it did have...
it's called Hidden.
Stephen King, Hidden. I'll check it out. I already recommend The Gangster That Caught the Devil, right, on the show? I told you to watch it.
I didn't
South
watch
Korean
it.
Film. Oh.
I did watch, I started season 2 of, what's the show I recommended last time? True Detective. So I've been watching season 2.
Really? Does it derail from season 2 and 3, I think? Like, the show's done after 3 or 4 seasons,
I mean, it's obviously not as good as season 1. I don't know if I'd say it derails, but because it's got an amazing cast. Like, it's got...
It kind of reminds me of The Killing. Do you remember that one with that redhead from World War Z?
The season 1 was solid, but season 2 and 3 were still interesting, I guess.
Still interesting. And I'm glad that they ended it the way they did, because it was like, I just want to see these two sad people get just a glimmer of happiness at the end, and they kind of did that.
Oh, no, season
perfectly.
1 and 2 were, like, solid, because it was, like, a complete story.
Yeah. Season 1 and 2 were still good, because the 2 very much continued.
I think I stopped in 3, but you finished 3.
I did. Yeah. Well, you have to finish the story. I just needed
the
some
story
more to
finished
come
at 2. 3 was just a whole new thing.
No, you had to know what happens to your characters. Watch The Killing, season 3. It's good.
Yeah.
You have to watch the whole story. Do you not care what happens to Holder? I cared.
No, 1 and 2 are good.
It's like, the show ended. No, it still keeps going. No, the show
That's
ended.
like...
Star Wars ended.
Like Men in Black 2, where it's like, it's like, oh, I don't want to see this old man that was retired come back and then talk about how he got divorced and... Like, I don't know. I just, I liked him running off with this girl, retiring.
Slow down. Well, wait, you're referring to the third one, right?
No, that's the second one.
Oh, the second one they bring him back.
Yeah, bring him back, and so they, like, say he, left his...
I have not watched all of Men in Black 2, and I've never seen Men in Black 3. How crazy is that?
No, and you didn't watch what, Men in Black 4? Men in Black International?
Wait, is there a fourth one?
Yeah, but it's got a new...
Oh, that's right. It's got the Kamal Ninjani, and what's her
Thor.
face? Yeah. Thor chick, yeah. Thor chick.
Thor and Thor chick, yeah.
Oh, it was Liam Hemsworth, right?
Yeah.
Or Chris Hemsworth, rather. It was Chris Hemsworth. Yeah, he was in it. That's right. that was probably the most forgettable movie of all time. Because I didn't even see the third one, which had Josh Brolin playing young. I would love to see that movie.
Speaking of Thor, it comes out this weekend. I'm gonna go see it.
Love and Thunder. I don't know, dude. Keep your hopes down. Looks like it's okay.
I tell you, it's Taika Waititi. He has not disappointed.
Disappointed in what though? Like
none of his all his movies are funny. Every single one.
Jordan especially laughed in that Hitler one.
I thought that was great.
Jordan was laughing particularly hard with her shoes dangling in frame, dude. You're crazy, Jordan. You're a sick man.
But
I used to think ScarJo was my Hollywood crush, but I don't know. I don't find her attractive anymore.
That was high school.
Mine's between Alison Brie and Emily Blunt, probably because they most resemble my wife. If my wife was a person, it should be Sarah Bareilles, Emily Blunt, and Alison Brie. But if you had an actress, is there one that you can name that looks most like Tatiana?
An actress that looks like Tatiana? Or
yeah, do you have a Hollywood lookalike that looks most like your wife? I can't think of one right now. I'll think of one. Maybe someone from The Office. Maybe Aaron from The Office a little bit? No.
Aaron? No.
That's me off the top of my head, yeah.
No. Maybe Leslie Knope, but...
Leslie Knope. Oh, yeah. You know, that's apt. There you go. See? There you go. Leslie Knope's freaking awesome.
I rewatched Brawl in Cell Block 99 with my brother-in-law.
Yeah? What do you think?
He loves it so much, he's like, what other movies has he made?
Okay, let me sit you down in front of Bone Tomahawk and
do you know, I looked at... Because I've just been doing endless research on this. As Craig Zoller, he apparently had Woody Harrelson in mind for that role originally.
For
Brawl in Cell Block 99.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, Vince Vaughn did a good job, but I could totally see Woody Harrelson pulling that off as well.
Yeah.
Would have been a different movie altogether, but...
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
But again, I would trust Craig, like, his direction, I think, mostly pulls it. Because,
yes.
again, you watched Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn again as to...
Yeah, he put me back on the Mel Gibson train, and so I started watching his new stuff. All garbage, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I love Mel Gibson, but yeah, I almost feel like he has to pick the bottom of the barrel when it comes to people. Who wants to work with some guy that drops the N-bomb, you know? Nobody does, unfortunately. So, It's crazy.
Oh, there's a few
crazy world we live in.
Oh, and then I don't know if I told Grant this on one of the other episodes, but did you hear that? So, as Craig Zoller, originally, when he first got to Hollywood, he'd written a bunch of scripts, and one of the scripts was in the hands of Michael Mann, the guy who did Heat. Like, it was going to be, he was supposed to direct it, but the Hollywood wouldn't give him any money because it wasn't a superhero movie. And they're like, sorry, we're not going to give you any money.
Oh, dang it. The rise
of
superheroes.
And then Park Chan-wook, the same guy that did Oldboy, and I'm trying to think of something you've seen of his.
I've heard of Oldboy, and I know about it. I've watched the fight scene.
Well, he was supposed to direct a Western written by S. Craig Zoller, and it was going to be starring Matthew McConaughey, but I don't know if they're still working on it, or I heard, though, that a lot of the comedic stuff, it wasn't quite translating because he's Japanese, and so he's like, or no, he's South Korean, so he's just like, your humor is just not quite.
You see this? These are notches from my belt from hunger pains. Troll 2. Neil Blog is goblins spelled backwards. Dude, we should watch another bad movie that it's good.
Well, we were supposed to, but Cameron's, keeps falling off the bandwagon.
What's the bad movie? What was it? Cure? What is it?
Yeah, next week is Cure because we've had it on the bucket list forever, and I paid for us to watch it.
Because I paid for it.
And it's for you, Lindy May. You better be happy.
Is that a listener on the show?
She's the one who recommended I Saw the Devil. And
I'm starting to be convinced that this person only gets Korean films. So she really doesn't know what an American film is.
Memories of Murder. What was the other one she told us to watch?
We watched Parasite on our own.
Oh, Bittersweet Life. That was so good.
Bittersweet Life. That was a good one. Yeah. See, again, you need to watch The Gangster and the Cop. And the
I know. I downloaded it to watch it on the airplane, but I didn't realize how long the True Detective was, so I didn't get to it.
I didn't realize how much I didn't care to watch your recommendation.
No, I have it on my list. You know how big my list is for watch list?
Dude, my list is growing too. I keep going through your movie collection. I'm like, I gotta watch all these movies now. You keep buying them. You just stop buying movies for a few weeks.
Now.
I know you are. I don't know where you're getting all this money from.
My wife.
From your criminal lawyer wife. Just buying all these movies. I don't know what you're doing.
All this blood money. At least it gets put to something good.
It's not something good. Your movie collection is like, I don't know, 80% amazing films that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, other 20% is pretty trashy.
20% is just garbage films. Like, why on earth would you spend money
on
watch?
the Free Willy series?
It's like you want to punish yourself. It's like, why are you bothering with it? Like,
I don't know the song.
It's Free Willy. There's a big whale on your boat. You better pray to that the waves doesn't pick up and I come over there and clobber you, punk. Freaking hilarious. Tommy boy. All right, guys, leave us a 5-star review. Leave us an email, futuremovies@gmail.com. Tell us a movie that you'd like us to review. If it's South Korean and it's sadistic, we're probably into watching it. And please tune in to our next week's episode where we talk about The Cure.
And hopefully Cameron actually makes it on.
And hopefully I get my PlayStation 5 to play the movie for me finally, so we can watch it. And I don't know if you meant to do this, but Basket Case is also left in the DVD case that you sent me. So I don't know if you're going to try to get me to watch that down the road, which I'm sure you're already anticipating that.
I love Basket Case.
Don't know that I will watch it, but yeah.
That is amazing bad movie, Ty.
I do love bad movies. All right, folks. Everybody, this has been Future Hidden Movie Jump. Check us out on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. All of our catalog, all of our history of all the shows that we've been doing thus far. And Jordan does a great work at finding the 1-minute segments that are really, really funny. Check it out on Instagram. All right, guys. Everybody, this has been Future Hidden Movie Jump. Setting out. Peace.
Bye.
You will atone.